Uganda, often celebrated for its breathtaking landscapes and abundant natural resources, hides a darker reality beneath its surface. Uganda has become a transit hub for other transnational crimes such as wildlife and mineral smuggling, among others. These underground networks fuel global demand while devastating local communities, eroding public trust, and robbing the nation of billions in revenue. Whether it's pangolin scales smuggled in hollowed-out timber logs or gold mined in militia-controlled zones in the DRC, these illicit trades represent a sophisticated web of corruption and exploitation. At its core lies a critical question: how can Uganda break free from a grip of illicit finance, organized crime, and protect its future? Uganda is a major player in the global wildlife trade, not just as a source, but as a critical transit hub. Ivory from elephants, pangolin scales, and other products make their way through Uganda, bound for Asia's lucrative markets.
Kind of like a coffin, so very large. What they do with the trees is they cut them and then they make them kind of as square as possible so they can fit into the containers. So they found 13 of those, and when they opened them up, they were hollow inside, and they were packed with ivory, tusks, and parts of tusks, and then inside the ivory was the pangolin scales. So there were two wildlife products which came from pangolins, which is the most trafficked mammal in the world, and ivory. So when we calculated the quantities, the ivory was about 3 tons of ivory, 3,000 kilos, and pangolin scales represented about 500 kilograms, so half a ton.
From the time we have been doing wildlife-related issues, that is from 2013, we noticed that most of the people we arrest would say, we prefer to trade from Uganda. And the reason why we prefer to trade from Uganda is basically because if you are arrested, you can easily get your way around it. You can bribe the police officer, you can put some money into the court processes, then they will release you.
When we did the investigation, one of the evidence documents that we found was the cash books of their payments. And in the cash books, there were payments to police, and a few of them actually, payments to police.
Which police?
Ugandan police, yeah. For moving the car, for delivery, we don't know.
Behind this trade is an organized network. At its head are powerful syndicate leaders, often far removed from the scene of the crime. As Rebecca explains, these individuals rarely set foot in Uganda.
Very huge network. The head of that network would not come to Uganda. That person was sitting in Vietnam. Randomly, we were told he came to Uganda 2 or 3 times. He would do his business and go. But the head of that whole network, the snake, sits somewhere else. They don't expose themselves. Of course, they have to be more hidden. But his people, all through that network, the transport company, the lawyers who register these companies, the accountants who are looking into the numbers, the accountants who are justifying the company to the URA, to the URSB, whatever documents you need to justify your audits, if you need audits, all of those people see the numbers. It's hard to believe that these people don't know that these people are involved in criminal activities.
In the mineral trade, the story takes an even darker turn. Gold, tin, and tantalum, essential for electronics, are smuggled through Uganda from conflict zones in the DRC. Militias controlling mining sites, using profits to fund violence and terror.
Of the mines in the region are essentially run by artisan and small-scale mining entities. And most of these are in hard-to-reach places. In the DRC, especially in the eastern DRC Congo, you have a lot of mining that is in the hands of militias M23 is one good example. So you can definitely not take away the impact of illicit minerals as far as illicit financing of conflict, illicit access to finances is concerned. If you look at M23, I've had the privilege of visiting one of the largest tin mine, coltan mines in North Kivu, in a place called Masisi. This Masisi area is essentially run by elements of M23, where you have mine sites with over 3,000 plus artisanal and small-scale mining. And you find that all these minerals end up in the global supply chain. And these are extremely rich resources that generate a lot of revenue.
The lack of regional agreements and monitoring systems allows this trade to flourish. Governments lose billions in revenue while criminal networks grow stronger. One of the key challenges that also promotes that is a lack of, regional an agreement that enables regional movement of these resources. So you have militias, you have mineral exporters, you have mineral traders that are traversing this region and exporting these resources to the international markets. But most of these revenues are not being monitored by the respective governments in the region due to our porous borders, due to the weak policy and legal framework. And of course, you're dealing with a lot of rich resources that generate billions in forms of dollars, billions of dollars. And you find that various elements within the regional governments, within the security arms, within the immigration offices get compromised. Traffickers use similar routes and tactics to moving wildlife and minerals, relying on cash payments to avoid detection.
We are a transit route, so most of that's for both the minerals and for the wildlife. It was from the neighboring countries and even beyond the neighboring countries. The country was being used as a transit, and then to the Middle East and to far Asia, to the Eastern Asian countries. Now the challenge has been, while we have a pretty good idea about the route the actual goods, illegal goods take, the same is not the same of the financials, how this is paid. That has been, tracking the payments has been difficult, because one of the conclusions we have come to is that these criminals actually, as much as possible, avoid paying through the formal financial system. So they use they seek to avoid. So cash, they use a lot of cash. As they say, in these illegal transactions, cash is king, because cash is difficult to track.
Weak enforcement and corruption make prosecution rare. Chidabida Florence, a police officer under Ministry of Internal Affairs and focal point in National Commission on National Arms, tells us that even guns have become a problem for them in dealing with criminality.
There has been a lot of waves of criminality in this country, where also guns had saturated in the wider population. And of course, once they are saturated, there are those who have been using it for illegal means. And we register quite a number of them in the database of police. Yeah. And by doing so, they cause a lot of insecurity.
The money generated from these trades doesn't vanish. It's reinvested into Uganda's economy, often in ways that evade scrutiny, meaning that money laundered ends up in this same economy.
So these fellows tend to look for other means of hiding this money in other resources. They get our wildlife products, send them out, but instead of getting money directly in, then they get other products and ship them in the country in exchange for the money that they are supplied illegal wildlife product for. So it is a big issue, and that is the way they tend to hide it, so that our different governmental authorities cannot detect and have them apprehended. Then when the money comes in the country, or the particular good gets into the country, the best way they do it is to try and invest in areas where government don't have a lot of interest and they are not specifically looking at it. Like they invest in construction work, do the apartments, and have people rent it, and they get the money again to buy wildlife products. They also invest in domestic animals, in cattle, goats, and the like, because in most cases government are not interested in those ones and they are not following it.
These consequences are devastating. Skewed policies, reduced tax revenue, and a growing divide between the rich and the poor. The fight against illicit finance in Uganda requires urgent action, strengthening regional collaboration, closing legal loopholes, and addressing corruption. All those are key to breaking the cycle of exploitation.
It follows the national law. It follows those regional and sub-regional international agreements to implement them in by our law. Because Uganda has ratified the Nairobi Protocol, it has ratified the Bamako, and also it is implementing the UN program of action. So proliferation per se is being controlled by those frameworks. Now, we have the motivation for proliferation of small arms is multifaceted. One, we have got rebellions, the rebels, and the ones that actually cause the proliferation of small arms. And what comes from them or what they use is illegal, illicit proliferation of small arms.
Uganda has not stood idly by. In recent years, the country has taken significant strides to combat illicit finance and the crimes that fuel it. Uganda's legal framework now imposes harsher penalties for wildlife crime.
Our law, the Uganda Wildlife Act of 2019, and as I said, as one of the laws on the continent that introduces offenses that have deterrent punishments that threaten offenders from committing wildlife crime for fear of going to prison for life, for fear of being sentenced to paying 200 million Uganda shillings. So, that is a good step.
Uganda has also since established the Standards, Utilities and Wildlife Court, the first of its kind on the continent. This court is dedicated to prosecuting wildlife-related crimes, ensuring that justice is not only swift but also specialized.
Cases involving wildlife now do not suffer, do not find themselves at the bottom of the agenda of court anymore. And they are also prioritized by court and other stakeholders. So they don't delay in the system and are and decisions are delivered quickly. We have seen consistency even in the way the cases are tried. We have seen sentences suiting the nature of crimes committed, and these are wildlife crimes.
The fight against illicit finance flows is far from over. But Uganda's steps toward stronger laws and specialized judicial systems offer a glimpse of hope. The question remains, will these efforts be enough to dismantle the networks of corruption, organized crime and exploitation that threaten the nation's future?